Hello, Sitaram. Good morning and welcome to all our brothers and sisters in Trinidad and Tobago, up the Caribbean and worldwide. All of those who are listening and following this program on radio and TV Jagriti, and also those at Facebook, YouTube, and social media. Again, I want to remind you this program will be rebroadcast tonight at 10 p.m. on radio and TV Jagriti. It will also be posted soon after the program on YouTube and Facebook. So those of you who do not have the time at this moment, you might be busy at your work and all of that, you can always come back to the program later on, or you can also use it as a resource. That's one of the main reasons I'm posting it on Facebook and YouTube, because this is a disease of denial where a lot of people will not admit that they have a problem. And even those with relatives who have problems do not know where to get help for them. And this could be a useful method of sending a link to them where they can listen to the program confidentially in their own space and time. And once the seed of recovery and hope is planted in their mind, my experience is that they, at some point in time, would realize, look, I can do something about my alcoholism or drug use. Because as a person in recovery myself, I do know that alcoholics and drug addicts are not foolish people. A lot of them are aware that the drinking and the drug use is causing a problem. But most of them are unaware of the resources that are available that can help them if they would like to stop. And most of them would like to stop, but they're trying on their own because of the stigma associated with alcoholism and drug use. A lot of people do not come out and admit that they have a problem with alcohol or drugs. And as a result, they deprive themselves from receiving help. So that this is a method one can use to get the message to them and to let them know that there are places you can go and get help in a confidential manner where you can keep it to yourself and yet still be able to do something about it. No, I know that we just completed Carnival. We're just out of Shivratri. You know, they are in stark contrast. Shivratri being a time of reflection, of devotion, of, you know, going back to your dharma, your value systems, and so on, praying to Lord Shiva. I myself, as a Hindu, I was very much involved in that, and I'm really happy that I have my family's support as well. You know, where you keep the different prahars and you throw the gel and so on, and um, and then. Of course, we did not have a live program last week, but we did have a very informative recording. And this program is live, so that if you have questions, you may call in the numbers on your screen and you can interact with us. And you can also post your comments on YouTube or Facebook, and I would happily respond to them, whatever questions you might have. About Carnival, you know, I took brief glimpses of the Carnival because, you know, it is not something honestly, I don't feel comfortable looking at with my family, especially with young children and grandchildren and so on, because I am on tenterhooks as to what might come up on the screen, especially when these big bands come with these people dressed in almost totally nude, and the clothing, the apparel is not only, you know, I would say inappropriate for young children to be looking at as models, but the actions that is performed by some of these masqueraders, you know, overtly sexual and suggestive, and you know, it is really, really demeaning. I mean, as a Trinidadian, as a young person, yes, I did go to Carnival and all of that. But even then, as a man, I had some reservation, and one of my relatives made the remark, that the men, most of the men were, reasonably appropriately dressed, and she, being a woman, felt so degraded that women were, you know, doing all kinds of things to get attraction, to get people to look at them. I don't know. I don't want to sound overly critical, because Carnival is very deep rooted in our history. It has tinges of emancipation and freedom. And yes, as a person who used alcohol and did use some of the other drugs, I could reflect on those, because one of the reasons I used drugs was because of being self-conscious. And I did not feel comfortable to dance or to really enjoy myself as I thought in those days, unless I had a few drinks. And of course, now I know in retrospect that some people could take a few drinks and enjoy themselves and dance and sing and everything. But there are some of us who are genetically predisposed to alcoholism, who, with all good intention, cannot stop at taking one drink. When we take one, that opens the floodgate, that we will invariably take more and more until we get inebriated and ridiculous. So that it took a lot of insight and courage to admit that, look, I couldn't drink alcohol. I was powerless over it. And I suspect a lot of my brothers and sisters out there are going through the same kind of experience, because I suffered for pretty near 20 years. Even though I knew drinking was causing a problem, I struggled to see if I could fix it myself for all those years. And the people around me who did not understand it, they kind of enable it without realizing it. So today, I, I want to congratulate some of the Alcoholics Anonymous groups in our communities. I know the MacBean A group, through the auspices of the Central Intergroup of Alcoholics Anonymous, did have a marathon meeting on Monday from 1 o'clock to 8 o'clock. And there was another marathon meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous organized by the Northern Intergroup. And I want to compliment them as well, at the Arangwes Primary School. And that was from, I think, 1 o'clock as well to 8 o'clock in the night. And they have been doing this for years, because Carnival is a trigger for a lot of people. I have heard a lot of people in recovery speak about, some of them very, very good people who relapsed around Carnival after staying for years, 5, 6 years sober. Their family wanted to go to see Carnival. They thought that they could handle it now. And so many people make that mistake, thinking that, after they have stayed sober for so long, and they have demonstrated to themselves and others that they have been able to resist the urge to drink and get drunk, they can't seem to understand. But when you get into that environment, a lot of things happen, and at the physical level, you are seeing people drinking and appearing to enjoy themselves, and relieved of inhibitions. And sometimes there's a fantasy that, I wish I could be like that. And being self-conscious, you know that you will feel awkward to behave like that or to engage like that. And so it, for a person who had been drinking, they remember that they were able to do all of those things, but they had to take a drink. So that this morning, in this second segment, I would want to start looking at some of these triggers, because Carnival is one of the big ones, especially in Trinidad and Tobago, where even we have had so many songs being sung on this, and glorifying it, drunk and disorderly. You remember that one? Very popular song, as though, that is one of the requirements for carnival and enjoyment and entertainment, being drunk and disorderly. And I know some people not even drunk, but going through the motions, the character of a person who is drunk and disorderly. So it's like glorifying, celebrating it, so that while we do that as adults, I want us to pause for a minute and think, what is the impression we are creating on the minds of the young ones who are looking at this? Because now children are very much involved. We have Kiddies Carnival, and it is a good thing that children learn to be outgoing, and not introverted, get brave to be on a stage and to sing and dance and all of that. And I have no problem with those things. Even masqueraders there were some beautiful costumes. I always enjoy looking at the portrayal of the jabs and the traditional masks, the, the Indians, the North American Indians, beautiful plumage and all of that. And there were some beautiful um, kings and queens, aspirants in the carnival bands. Big mass that was put together with a lot of skill, a lot of colors. So there's a beautiful side of it. But of course, there is the other side I mentioned before, of the lewdness and the indecency, you know. And I know I will probably be criticized by some out there, because I know a lot of people put themselves through the ringers. They go to the gym and all of that for months before carnival, so that they can expose their bodies, and parade themselves in a certain way, almost completely new, leaving very little to the imagination. And one has to, as we speak about this, those people who are involved need to ask, why am I doing this? What is the real reason I do this? And most of these people are, I mean, married with children, and some of them with grandchildren, I'm sure. What is the message I'm sending? Is it okay? Because, yes, I used to be in the adoption board of Trinidad and Tobago at one time. And I can tell you that 9 months from now, we will be getting a lot of applications, and, and, and from the hospitals where babies are being abandoned. Would be babies women who became pregnant over the carnival Monday and Tuesday. There's a surge in birth around that time, and children being abandoned at the hospital and given up for adoption. And I want to say to our adult population, children do not ask to come in the world. They do not ask to come. But if we decide to bring them in the world by using whatever means, under whatever circumstances, we are morally bound to a responsibility to care for these little ones. They are part of us, you know? And I have seen, I mean, our orphanages are filled with children who have been abandoned, who, because of being, women, some young girls, teenagers becoming pregnant, not knowing who the father is and all of that, and not being able to carry and support the infant, abandoning and giving them up for adoption. And yes, I also want to salute all of those adoptive parents who have, and foster care people who have come forward to adopt these children. Although in my investigations, I know some of these children have been adopted, for the wrong reasons. Some to fill a void, some to have a little person to run errands, or literally to have a little slave. You know, so I know I am going off the subject of alcoholism and drug addiction, but these are some of the consequences of that one can attract to themselves when you go for carnival. You dress in such a lewd manner that you invite indecent approaches from men. You literally facilitated by your actions on the road there. You know, I go to sometimes the social media and I see people completely with strangers, don't even know, just participating in indecent and suggestive acts with people who don't even know, and almost everybody is carrying a little pouch or a container with alcohol. And I know all these all-inclusive bans, it is alcohol is unlimited. And to the alcoholic, that could even spell death and destruction. How many people are going? I know the statistics, the criminal statistics, I sense it is being played down because, I mean, the police and the national security will not want to look bad. But although they said we had a crime-free carnival, I personally am aware of several incidents that I heard about, that was brought to my attention, I became aware of, where there were fights and there were shootings and all of those things. So that there, while yes, it's called, we name Carnival our national culture, and it is celebrated in some parts of the world as the greatest fete on earth. But I think we can still have a good time. We can have this celebration. But I think we need to go back. I'm speaking to our brothers and sisters out there. We need to go back to our moral standings. We have to be mindful that when we drink, when we use drugs, when we engage in activities like that, we have to be mindful of the message that we are sending out to the young ones who are looking on. Because even those who were not able to go to the city to see for themselves, when you look at the television station, they go scan all the cities, and you're able to see much more than if you were physically standing on Independence Square or in Harris Promenade. You would be able to see more on the television. And I dare say that, the media houses need to take a certain amount of responsibility. That they zoom in as if were they also part of that irresponsible cadre of people who, they search out these nudity and lecherous behavior and flash it on the full screen and all of that. I think the media can also and I want to compliment this television station that they do not engage in this sort of irresponsible behavior. But, these are things we have to be mindful that even though didn't take my grandchildren out there and trying to protect them, I had to take the TV off and switch to other channels so that they will not be exposed to this nudity and lecherous and lewd behavior, that has come to dominate what seems to be what's in demand by the population for carnival. So that I think, in the old days, you would hear some, some of the priests and pundits and so on comment on these things. And seems like they have also been turned off now. And, over time, we have become desensitized and we are accepting this behavior. And this does not only apply to carnival. Christmas, Easter, most of our religious festivals are being predicated on drinking and drug use. And we have to become aware of this if we are going to be able, it is it is, I mean, fashionable to just blame the alcoholic or the drug addict for their behavior. But people do not become alcoholic and drug addict overnight. There's a saying that a child is really a product of their community. Not only the parents alone is responsible for socializing the child. A child also is looking around what is happening in their village, in their locality, and in their country. And in Trinidad, we have a very high propensity for drinking. Drinking and drug use is becoming interwoven in the fabric of our culture. And so that we have, those of us who want to have our children avoid these pitfalls of alcoholism and drug addiction, we need to become aware of it and put things in place and be able to respond to our young children and teenagers and so on. So that I know that on the 23rd, I'm part of a panel at the Diwali Nagar where we will be talking about alcoholism and drug use among teenagers. And I'm throwing out an invitation for those of you who want to be part of that. It would be also a forum where you could ask questions. So we'll take a little pause here. And when we come back, I want to speak about some of the triggers that lead people to relapse and to drug use and to perpetuate their drug use in the first place. So I'll see you in the next part.